Welcome back to Taste for Adventure, and today we will be discussing beers with vanilla in them.
Yeah, vanilla as a flavoring for beer is interesting. I mean, when I think of beers, you think maybe vanilla might not necessarily work contextually. But I feel like with some of these, like some of the beers we've got on deck tonight, it's actually kind of, so we've got Ommegang's Rye Barrel Vanilla Stout.
Yeah.
If it's stouts, I'm in.
Yeah.
We got Founder's Velvet Rush. Not really sure what style of beer that is. We'll find out.
Yep.
And then Dragon's Milk Reserve Vanilla, which sounds very interesting to me. I'm very interested in all of the beers that we're drinking on this one.
Yeah, for sure. I know you're a big coffee beer guy.
Yes.
And just like a lot of coffee beers, I think vanilla also goes really well in darker beers.
It does.
Like things like stouts. So two of the three beers we're having tonight are stouts. Mm-hmm. Velvet Rush is actually like an Imperial brown ale.
Brown, okay.
So even though it's not a stout, it's still kind of on the darker spectrum.
Yeah.
So let's open the first beer and we can get into kind of where vanilla fits in the beer world and how you could add vanilla in your beers if you homebrew them.
Mm-hmm. We're going to start out with the Ommegang Rye Barrel Vanilla Stout. You've got kind of repping not sponsored, hashtag not sponsored, but...
I really like Ommegang,
yeah.
And I had the opportunity to stop by the brewery a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And it's in like kind of the middle of nowhere in New York State. Yeah. So I came back with a lot of swag because I didn't think I'd ever be back there again. So yeah, definitely repping the Ommegang. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start off with their limited release Rye Barrel Vanilla Stout.
That should be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so the Ommegang Rye Barrel Vanilla Stout.
Rye Barrel Vanilla Stout. And
it's a heavy hitter. It's, I think, read 9.5.
Yeah, 9.5. It's an Imperial Stout with vanilla.
Yep.
Aged in rye whiskey barrels.
Well, if you ever wanted to smell vanilla, this is that.
There is a lot of vanilla in this beer. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, would you say that helps or hurts? 'Cause I guess we could take a sip, but
just from the nose, like
it's a very vanilla. It's just vanilla. That's all.
Yeah. Well, and
nothing else.
So it's a rye barrel, and I think one thing that I definitely want to point out is that. You can actually get vanilla-like notes in the flavor and in the aroma without adding any vanilla. If you age a beer in oak, there is a chemical or compound or whatever in oak barrels called vanillin. And vanillin, sure enough, is reminiscent of vanilla.
Makes sense.
So you can get that naturally out of oak barrels. So it kind of then makes sense. You can take that a step further by adding vanilla into the beer that you're then putting into the oak barrels.
Okay.
So
like doubling down.
Kind of doubling down. So that's where you might see a lot of vanilla beers that have also been aged in some kind of barrels. Because that just kind of synergy of flavors and aromas there. Maybe a little tannic.
Okay.
Probably.
We're introducing new vernacular.
Yeah. So you can get tannins from oak, and tannins can be a little bit astringent. Also, the rye can be a little spicy and kind of drying.
Wow.
So I think some of that, I'm not getting a lot of bourbon or whiskey character.
No.
Now, I know that rye whiskey can be less like caramely and sweet than like straight bourbon. So I think some of that could be from that, but I think a lot of it's the barrel.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely get some tannic astringency from the barrel. Very vanilla forward.
Very vanilla forward.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Makes for a very thick glass.
Yes.
I mean, it's a stout. Yours just dark as night. You can barely see through it at all. I mean, if you're looking at it from the side, you really can't.
Well, and like, talking about the thickness, like look at the legs on this thing and look at like how slow the foam actually comes down the side of the glass. Like it's just holding on with that nice like lacing on the glass.
Yeah, I see that.
Pretty incredible, and that just shows how thick and heavy this beer is.
This is definitely one to share.
Oh yeah.
9.5. This is Be the fool that tries to drink one of these by himself.
Well, by the end of our flight, we're going to have 3 beers that are all in this range. So,
I hope you don't have too far to drive.
Yeah. Yeah, there is some warmth, but it's not like... I'm not getting like a lot of the higher, like hot alcohols in it. I think the vanilla can help with that. And it also makes it kind of takes the edge off and gives it that like creamy impression. And I think vanilla is really good at doing that, make it more kind of marshmallowy and soft. Can kind of smooth down the rough edges on what might otherwise be a very roasty and alcoholic beer. Vanilla can soften the impression.
Yeah.
I like it. Definitely, this is enough. This is a beer to share. Yeah, this is a beer to share. I do like it.
It's definitely a sipper.
Yeah.
I would not take just gigantic pulls of this.
The vanilla is really prominent. The barrel is fairly prominent. The base beer is a little dull.
Yeah,
like I'm not getting a lot of character from the base beer. And for like a hyper specialty beer, that's to be expected somewhat. But I would want to maybe, if I could improve upon this beer or provide like some of my notes, I think that maybe having a little bit more robust flavors in the base, or maybe take down the vanilla a little bit so that beer can push through the vanilla, the veil of vanilla.
Yeah. And I think that's where I'm gonna. I think that's actually where I'm gonna split with you, because I'm not a gigantic fan of this. If I'm gonna be. Stout, vanilla. It should be for me a winning combo, but I don't know if that rye. I don't know if that.
Yeah.
Not really a rye drinker, outside of the beers or anything like that. I enjoy a nice whiskey or a nice bourbon, but rye is just something I've never really played around with. So I mean, it's just a little bit offensive to my palate, but
to me,
definitely an interesting one.
And to me, this beer I think would be better with some age.
You think?
Because like I'm getting like the distinct vanilla, which should fade with some age. I think some of that tannic, like spicy quality, should also fade.
Yeah.
Plus, it doesn't feel like a cohesive beer. Like we're tasting very distinctly the different parts of it. It's not melding in a super harmonious way.
Right.
But a beer with some age, I think would. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of that, and in these terms, I remember the first time I had ever had an Ommegang beer was their Game of Thrones series.
Yeah.
And I remember it was your big party for the final, your series finale party. You had been aging those beers for years at that point. Years for that point.
Yeah, they came out with 13 different Game of Thrones beers, I think.
And you had all of them.
I had all, yeah.
You had all of them on hand that night.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I would be interested to see what this tastes like in 3 years.
Right. Right.
If we can find one of these and do a follow up in 3 years, we'll see.
I bought a 4-pack.
Oh, so maybe
the other ones are definitely going to sit around for a little while.
Right.
So
we'll see you in 2025.
Yeah, I agree with your notes though that it's I get a little bit of the astringency.
Yeah, it's a little strong.
I do think the vanilla is overpowered and the base beer doesn't shine through enough.
Yeah, that could be what it is. The vanilla is overpowered. It's almost like drinking vanilla extract.
Yeah. I don't hate the beer.
No.
I do think that it should have a bit of age.
I don't hate it either. I just, if we're going by my metric, I would probably not have another one.
Sure. Yeah, and actually, I probably wouldn't either. I'm really excited to try the other beers in the lineup to see how the vanilla presents in those. Are they going to be as heavy with the vanilla?
Yeah.
Or because they're all actually fairly recent purchases. I haven't been sitting on one for a long time.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I'm eager to try the rest of them. I'm not going to let the Ommegang kind of dissuade me from the whole vanilla beer experience. But up next, we've got Founder's Velvet Rush. That sounds like Sounds like a marketing ploy. Velvet Rush, you know, like it's like, okay, wow, okay. What could that be like?
I like the velvet with vanilla because, you know, I think I mean, aside from the alliteration, with velvet and vanilla, like I said, vanilla can kind of soften the edges and make a beer more velvety than it otherwise would be. So, yeah, let's dig in. Let's dig in. Yeah, so
from Founders,
and this is a brown ale, not a stout with vanilla, and it doesn't just have vanilla; it has a lot of other things.
Oh, it does it ever!
I get that coffee, in the nose.
Right? And that's a really that's like a baking cooking thing.
Yeah,
is that a lot of the time coffee will sort of amp up chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it does. Like you can add chocolate, like you know. You could add like powdered coffee or whatever, instant coffee to your like brownies or whatever, and it doesn't make it taste like coffee. It just amps up the chocolate.
Oh.
But I'm getting very strong like chocolate, and then there's like coffee that comes through too.
I'm getting like it's like a coffee with a lot of cream.
Yeah.
You know, like a latte type of.
I just
coffee.
get a hell of a lot of chocolate.
I'm getting that too. Is there chocolate in this beer?
Yeah.
Or is it just
it said, I think it said coffee,
chocolate, and vanilla extract.
Yep.
And milk sugar.
And milk sugars.
Yeah.
So this should be a very sweet beer.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah.
We will see.
It smells great. To me, it
smells
like a Starbucks like flavored coffee drink that might have, you know, the sugar, the vanilla, the coffee. Like it's like a Starbucks mocha type drink.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. It tastes like that too, doesn't it?
Definitely does.
I get a lot of coffee, but here's the thing. I think so in this beer, and I did want to touch on this tonight, is that sometimes vanilla goes really well, not just kind of softening the rough edges of a beer, but it can also go really well complementing other adjuncts.
Yeah.
It's a really good, you know, Robin to another, you know, Aspects Batman, right?
Fair enough.
So, you know, by adding coffee and cocoa, you could have a very roasty, very astringent beer.
Yeah.
But then by adding the vanilla, it gives that impression of sweetness, it gives that impression of softness, and it can really round out or even hide potentially roasty and bitter flavors.
Yeah.
So it works really well in harmony with those other, like, kind of darker, harsher type flavors. This would, put it this way, this would be a very different beer if it was just
without
coffee and cocoa without the vanilla.
Interesting.
Yeah. And this is 11.1% alcohol.
This is another, I mean, my God. It's another shareable for sure. I feel like, and I don't know about the Dragon's Milk yet, but it just seems like you shouldn't be drinking these alone.
Although, I've got to say, this does not taste like an 11% beer.
No, not really. No.
I mean, I'd give it 8%, but 11? Like, I think of an 11% beer as this, like, big, heavy thing.
Especially for a brown.
Yeah, for a brown ale, it actually still has the balance of a brown ale. It doesn't, it's not like motor oil.
Do you like the base beer better on this? Can you taste through that? Or is it just too much?
Well, I mean, I like the color and clarity and, like, the lightness of body.
Yeah.
And that all fits in really well with the brown ale.
Okay.
Let me try to sip and see if I can pick out much of the base beer. Yeah, to me, the base beer on this is like the pedestal that's holding up the coffee, the chocolate, the vanilla, and the sugar. It's there, but you're not really paying attention to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's doing its job, but it's not the focal point.
No.
Yeah.
This is very dessert beer.
Oh, yeah.
This is extremely dessert beer.
Now, do you like this better than the rye barrel?
It's just hard to say. I caught myself thinking, I'm like, do I hate vanilla? I'll definitely say I like this better than the Ommegang. I like that it's got a very like chocolate coffee aspect to it. It's very like chocolate brownies to me.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing. It's just it's very, I don't know. I don't want to say it's gimmicky, but it's going for a very specific flavor. That chocolate coffee, kind of vanilla, all that is, like I said, it's very dessert beer. And at 11%, you know, I mean you could replace, you know, any confection with it.
Sure.
Sweet and, you know, everything like that. It's interesting.
The interesting thing about vanilla,
it's growing on me.
You think about vanilla like, you know, vanilla can be slang for like bland, right? Like, oh, it's just this vanilla.
Oh yeah,
thing.
yeah. Super
you know,
vanilla, yeah.
Vanilla ice cream is kind of like the most basic of ice creams.
Right.
So you would think that vanilla in beer wouldn't really maybe add much. Maybe a little bit of creaminess, maybe a little impression of sweetness. Turns out, a little vanilla when you're brewing goes a very long way.
Extremely.
I mean, I think both the beers that we've had, and these are commercial, like, you know, well-respected breweries, kind of overdid it on the vanilla.
A little bit.
You know?
I mean, they put it right in the title.
Yeah, but even still, like, vanilla is a subtle flavor, but a little bit goes a very long way in beer.
Well, and if you've ever tasted pure vanilla extract, it's impossible. You die.
Oh, yeah.
You know, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
So, it's really interesting. So if you're ever brewing with vanilla and you're thinking about adding a lot, cut it by like 2/3. Like really dose it in very slowly, because you can always add, you cannot take away.
No, and I mean, I see you. We've actually got some props over here. Some vanilla extract. They actually have those vanilla pods there.
Yes. So this is actually a vanilla bean. It's a very long. It's like a very, very skinny, almost like a pea pod or like a green bean type of thing. So if you buy an actual vanilla bean, what you do is you slit it, and then you kind of turn it inside out, and then scrape out the vanilla paste. Now this is kind of expensive. This little pack of 3 beans was like $11. But this is all you need. You need like 3 beans or less to do a big beer like
whole
this.
beer.
You know, if you're brewing 5 gallons.
Yeah.
Wow. And this will give more than enough vanilla flavor.
Yeah.
I could almost do a bean per beer, per 5-gallon beer, and it's enough.
I would say so.
Yeah. So, I mean, and vanilla's so intense, even though it's a subtle flavor. I mean, this thing is sealed in plastic. I can smell it from here.
Yeah.
Like I smell the vanilla from here. I had it in a grocery bag with some hops in my fridge. So it's in this, and it's in a grocery bag with some hops. I can't smell hops through the bag. I open the fridge up, and all I smell is vanilla.
Your whole fridge smells like vanilla.
This vanilla can be very intense. Yeah. So even though it's a subtle kind of end product, a little bit goes a very long way. I can't stress that enough. So if vanilla beans aren't your thing, you can use extract. I always prefer using pure vanilla extract over like any kind of an imitation vanilla.
Oh. Okay, so that's okay.
It's just that imitation vanilla flavor or whatever. But more often than not, I will actually just use the liquid pure vanilla extract.
Yeah.
When I'm adding it, it's basically vanilla that has it's a tincture. They actually pull all the vanilla flavor out with like a bourbon or vodka or something. So which is perfectly fine when with brewing. So I got this for a special anniversary beer I'm gonna do.
Oh, nice.
But most of the time when I add a little vanilla to beer, and I don't do it often, I will just get the liquid vanilla extract. So.
Yeah, I mean, you say it's a subtle flavor, but I mean, you always know when you're eating vanilla ice cream.
It's true, but
I mean, I'm not talking about like vanilla soft serve, but like if you go the Breyer like vanilla bean ice cream, it's like, oh my god, this is what vanilla is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so easy to say like white. It's basically white ice cream versus chocolate.
Right.
That's what the vanilla. How some vanilla can come across.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, you think about it, and it's like, wow, this is really vanilla. And they probably, they don't use a lot.
They don't. It doesn't take a lot.
It does not. So,
it really doesn't.
Yeah. Interesting beer. It is growing on me, I will say.
Yeah. I really like this beer pretty well. Yeah. And, Founders...
Founders is great.
Their barrel series, all their KBS beers are kind of within that same series. I really like this Velvet Rush as an alternative to their, KBS, their Bourbon Barrel Stout. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what is last up on tap tonight?
Last is the Dragon's Milk Reserve Vanilla.
All right, so we have the Dragon's Milk Reserve, which is a double bourbon barrel aged stout with Madagascar and Indonesian vanilla beans.
Yes.
And this is Reserve 2 for 2021.
12.3%?
Yeah.
It's another big boy. It is all big boys.
Big heavy hitters, so.
But yeah, this is I was pouring that out and it made like that silly glug 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 noise like whenever you're pouring out motor oil, and this is motor oil for sure. Yeah. Not that I don't have anything wrong with that, but
well, and I think the vanilla can help to soften the big boozy notes of big bourbon barrel-aged beers. So,
the vanilla is much more subtle on the nose. Much more
is
subtle.
it? Oh, it sure is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to say almost imperceptible, but it's like,
it's there. Yeah. Compared to the other two, I mean, it's in balance. Where the other two, it was like center stage.
Yeah, here's our vanilla beer. This is like, here's our Dragon's Milk with vanilla.
Yes. Which is kind of always what the balance you want to shoot for when you're adding some extra flavor into the beer.
Okay. Now you see, I love this.
Well, and this is exactly that. Yep. This is Dragon's Milk with vanilla. It's not the vanilla flavor that has featuring Dragon's Milk. Yeah. This is subtle. It's nuanced, but it's there.
Yeah. Well, and look at the packaging. Is that if you did not actively look at the label, you wouldn't know this had anything like vanilla in it. Right. You can see it's got like that kind of like off yellow sort of ring, stripes around it.
Yeah.
But you actually have to read this has vanilla in it.
Yeah.
So I think I appreciate that.
Yeah. And when you can accomplish subtle flavors in a beer, I always appreciate that.
Yeah. This is way more my speed.
Yeah, no, it's good. I don't know what the difference is between Madagascar and Indonesian vanilla beans. Maybe, certainly there must be differences, and maybe that's just more of a well-rounded vanilla flavor.
Could be.
But also, they didn't overdo it with the vanilla.
They did not.
And it just makes for just a smooth Imperial Stout.
Yeah, I like this. I like this a lot. I mean, if it weren't 12.3%, I could see drinking this, by myself. So one of those ones you want to share. I think this might do better with some age. It's not flawless.
Yeah. I almost want to see a little bit more, roast.
Yeah.
But I still think that vanilla is kind of tamping down on some of that.
It comes through.
Of the three, this is definitely the most well-rounded.
It's my hands down favorite.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, if you're looking for a vanilla beer, unless you're just crazy about vanilla, if If you want a beer that's just like creamier with a note of vanilla, maybe a little bit softer than a regular Imperial Stout, yeah, the Dragon's Milk Reserve here is the one to go with.
I like this, though. I definitely like the more subdued vanilla flavor.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about, if you're brewing at home, how you can impart vanilla into the beer. Obviously, we've talked about beans versus the extract.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about where you add it, like at what stage, right? So don't want to add it in the boil because, yes, we've mentioned that even though vanilla is a subtle flavor, it's easy to overdo it. Yeah. But if you add it too early in the boil, all of that will just blow off. Sure. Either in the boil off or in the fermentation. Vanilla is definitely an additive you want to add in the secondary. So, or right before kegging or bottling. Yeah. So, and that's something that you definitely you dose in to taste. So, especially if you're using the liquid. So, you have a complete stout. You want to add vanilla to it. Do it at like a teaspoon at a time for a 5-gallon keg. Like seriously, like a little bit. Yeah. Add in a little bit, swish it around.
Goes a long way.
And then pull a sample and sip, and then see where it's at. Less is more with vanilla, and you add it really in right before packaging. If you're doing the beans, obviously by the time you put your hands on them, cut them, you could introduce some bacteria type stuff. Yeah. So after you do that, you might want to think about covering with bourbon or a neutral vodka to sanitize them, but then also that can be a tincture that can extract more of that vanilla.
You could do tincture. I could see doing tincture.
So that's the way that I've added vanilla before. You never just want to grab the bean, slice it, like flip it inside out, and then throw it in, because then all the bacteria, even if you wash your hands beforehand.
Well, even if you're wearing rubber gloves.
Yeah, you can. It just is asking for trouble. Yeah. You're rolling the dice on a beer that you probably want to turn out pretty well.
Yeah, it'll cost you money.
Yeah. So with the beans, I would slice them open, flip them inside out, scoop them, and then still top them off with. If you want it to be very neutral, you can do vodka. I think the bourbon really goes well with vanilla, and even if it's just enough to top it off, do that for a little while, and then throw it in the beer.
Right.
But all that is still really in the secondary. The beer's done fermenting. You haven't packaged it yet, whether it's kegging, bottling, whatever. Just kind of dose it.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So, that's interesting. It's always interesting learning these beer brewing tips.
That's part of what the show is all about. It's learning about new commercial beers, trying to figure out which beers are the best to pick up, but then also if you want to brew it at home, what to do. And I'm no expert on home brewing, but I've brewed quite a bit. I'm coming up on almost batch 200.
That's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
What are you doing for 200?
Well, that's why I have the beans.
Oh.
I'm doing an Imperial Stout.
Yep.
With I think it's cocoa and vanilla.
Nice. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Actually, an adjustment of my recipe that I did at my batch 100.
Oh yeah.
Which was an Imperial Stout with cocoa and vanilla.
I remember. So
thanks for joining us and talking a little bit about vanilla beers.
Yeah.
And
that's all I got. Enjoy vanilla beers.
That's right. Yeah, so vanilla goes really well in darker beers like stouts.
Yep.
Stronger beers that you might want to take the little alcohol burn edge off of. But it's also easy to overdo. I think
very easy to overdo.
That's kind of what we.
I think that's the approximation.
Yeah.
So, very nice. Yeah. So, pretty good.
All right. Well, we will see you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.